It's Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Are the walls closing on Walz? Dispatches from Davos and learning a very specific lesson. Next on the AM Update. Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, State Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey have all received subpoenas from the Department of Justice. Fox News originally reported on this development on Tuesday and said it relates to an investigation into obstruction of immigration and customs enforcement operations. Walz's office and Frey's office confirmed to KMSP TV that they received the subpoenas. Walz also posted a statement on social media to President Trump. Quote, "Mr. President, Minnesota invites you to see our values in action. Come see how communities from all walks of life are working together and how the spirit of this state refuses to be defined by division or fear." The subpoenas asked for records and communications from the politicians related to this surge of federal officers in Minnesota. The Associated Press reported that other subpoenas were also sent to St. Paul Mayor Coley Kerr, was previously admitted she's an illegal immigrant, and officials in Ramsey County as well as Hennepin County. Both counties, of course, encompass the Twin Cities region. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General in Minnesota, was interviewed in part by Don Lemon the other day and actually says this about the protests, the invasion, the ransacking, the desecration of City's church by Don Lemon and other commies on Sunday.
The protest is fundamental to American society. This country started in a protest. And, it's freedom of expression. People have a right to lift up their voices and make their peace. And none of us are immune from the voice of the public. So I think that you got the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and the First Amendment, freedom of expression. And I think that, it's just something you gotta live with.
So yes, commies barging into your church, making your young children terrified, making threats, really, that's what was going on there, and generally terrorizing a congregation. You just got to deal with that, according to Attorney General Keith Ellison. I told you a couple weeks ago, he's one of the most evil statewide elected office holders in all of the country. He also said in that interview that the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, only deals with baby killing facilities. That is not true. In fact, I didn't know this prior to this last weekend. Here is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act of 1994. Quote, in subsection 2, intentionally injuring, intimidating, or interfering with, or attempting to injure, intimidate, interfere any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction, exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment rights of religious freedom at the place of religious worship. There's another section of this that also overtly mentions places of worship in the FACE Act. So Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, of course, surprise, surprise, does not know the law. President Trump spoke at the White House yesterday on a range of topics, including this.
For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration, where we're getting all of these illegal people out. People that came in illegally, in many cases, they're criminals in many, many cases. You remember when they used to say that the people that come into our country as immigrants are very nice people, they're wonderful people, they don't commit crime. No, they make our criminals look like babies. They make our Hell's Angels look like the sweetest people on earth.
There's President Trump, and it is true. 2025 saw reverse migration, negative migration outflows out of the United States. Here's Trump again.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Again, mum's the word on the hot topic of the cold land of Greenland. Mentioned yesterday, President Trump will be at Davos for the World Economic Forum's annual confab. Of course, a person who is all too familiar to the WEF is the transhumanist philosopher-in-chief himself, Yuval Noah Harari, who made these comments, very dystopian indeed, during the first full day of the WEF forum.
Do you know? As far as putting words in order is concerned, AI already thinks better than many of us. Therefore, anything made of words will be taken over by AI. If laws are made of words, then AI will take over the legal system. If books are just combinations of words, then AI will take over books. If religion is built from words, then AI will take over religion. This is particularly true of religions based on books, like Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. Judaism calls itself the religion of the book, and it grants ultimate authority not to humans, but to words in books. Humans have authority in Judaism not because of our experiences, but only because we learn words in books. Now, no human can read and remember all the words in all the Jewish books, but AI can easily do that. What happens to a religion of the book when the greatest expert on the holy book is an AI?
Yuval Noah Harari, the transhumanist philosopher-in-chief. I guess you could maybe give him the benefit of the doubt there. What he's saying is descriptive, not prescriptive, as if we don't have years of this guy on the record. Translation, I can't wait until a universal AI gets its hands on your religion so that the AI that I'm probably going to program can tell you what your religion actually says and means and what you should believe and how you should worship and what things you can read and believe. That is essentially what Yuval Noah Harari is saying there. A fitting start to the World Economic Forum's confab. French President Emmanuel Macron sporting sunglasses because of some eye injury, I guess, that he got. Maybe we can talk to Bridget about that. Just kidding. Don't sue me, Bridget. He addressed the forum as well, trying to take a page out of Canada's playbook, maybe, cozying up to China.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe in some key sectors to contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products which sometimes don't have the same standards or are much more subsidized as the one being produced in Europe.
French President Emmanuel Macron begging for Chinese money. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Here is United States Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Howard Lutnick, U.S. Commerce Secretary, going off on globalism and Europe's mind-numbingly stupid energy policies. Those are dispatches from Davos, day one. Quickly before the break, I want to introduce you to a woman in Wales. Wow, there's a joke there. A woman in Wales in the United Kingdom who has a physiognomy akin to Jabba the Hutt. She has the title of health activist. Her name is Athika Ahmed. A woman from Wales, a health activist who has the same physiognomy as Jabba the Hutt. Listen to this.
A person who is from an ethnic minority background, some communities, it's actually taboo to, and it's quite a sensitive topic to talk about. So if you're not being able to learn about these things through the medium of school, then where do you learn, And I wish when I was in school, we were, they teach us in Welsh back about, how to apply for a bank account and how to, get a job. But what about things like how to check if, do a breast exam? How do I know if, signs of cervical cancer, screenings, when am I supposed to get those? The things that are going to prolong my life, So why don't we teach these things before we teach, how to get a job? Because if I'm not living long enough, how am I going to get a job?
So that is a woman named Athika Ahmed. She is a woman from Wales who has a Jabba the Hutt body type, who is described as a health activist. She has launched this campaign to educate the British youth about health. Said, quote, "If I'm not living long enough, how am I going to get a job?" Maybe lay off the crisps for a little bit. When we come back, a wild story out of India. Also, the church that was desecrated in the Twin Cities speaks out for the first time. And Don Lemon, he needs some prayer. That's coming up next. Chaos in a small town in India. Stories from TMZ. A killer elephant is still on the loose following a terrifying rampage, leaving 22 people dead in just 10 days, including an expert who was called in to stop it. The elephant went rogue in Chaibasa, a district in India's Jharkhand state. Began attacking villages on New Year's Day. A couple and their 2 children were trampled to death as they slept in a Barbaria village in the following days, and the number of victims has steadily risen. More deaths were confirmed across areas and regions in India, with terrified residents now being told to stay indoors and steer clear of forested areas. Officials completely lost control of the situation, botched attempts to capture and tranquilize the animal. It all comes after they briefly drove the elephant into neighboring Odisha region, only for a local staff to force the killer elephant straight back in Chaibasa over safety concerns. Never heard of a story like that before. Apparently, there are some types of elephants male elephants, who will go through some weird phase in their brain every few years or so that causes them to produce a ridiculous amount of testosterone, and they just go nuts on everyone and everything, including their own young, including other elephants. Maybe that's what's happening here. Bizarre story. We go back home to Minneapolis. The elder board of City's church that was trampled by those communist agitators the other day released a statement. They said, quote, "Jesus is real. When we gather on Sunday mornings to worship him, we are gladly giving ourselves to what is most central and sacred in our life together. We Worship Jesus stretches as the main banner of our church alongside two other pursuits that flow from it, loving one another and seeking the good of the Twin Cities. On Sunday, January 18th, a group of agitators jarringly disrupted our worship gathering. They accosted members of our congregation, frightened children, and created a scene marked by intimidation and threats. Such conduct is shameful, unlawful, and will not be tolerated. Invading a church service to disrupt the worship of Jesus or any other act of worship is protected neither by the Christian scriptures nor by the laws of this nation. We welcome a respectful dialogue about present issues and about how the realness of Jesus, as revealed in the Bible, provides the only final answers to the world's most complex and intractable problems. Jesus Christ, the divine Son of God, lived, died, and rose again for the rescue of all who've put their faith in him. He offers a love that transcends cultures, borders, policies, and politics. As those who have been loved and rescued by him, we will not shrink from worshiping Jesus, nor will we stop teaching and proclaiming the good news that Jesus is the Messiah. Church buildings are meant to be a place of peace and solace, where worshipers can hear and live out this message. We therefore call on local, state, and national leaders to protect this fundamental right. We are evaluating next steps with our legal counsel, the elders of Cities Church. I think that is a fine statement. It served two purposes there: exalting Jesus Christ and letting it be known in no uncertain terms that no, we're not just going to get pushed over by you. There are legal options on the table, and we will pursue those. I thought that was just a fine statement. Don Lemon needs some prayer. It's become abundantly clear, namely, and it has been for quite some time. But at least when he was at CNN, there was some accountability there to rein him in. He's always been kind of a sociopath, psychopath, whichever definition fits him best. But he needs prayer. The dude is just completely soulless. Has no idea what he did. Took great pride in the fact that he played a part in frightening children. Hopefully he feels like a big man. It's in the midst of all this that this clip from 2025 started making the rounds again. He went out on the street to interview residents, I believe, of Chicago about their thoughts on laws pertaining to the southern border or any border of this country, and whether or not it's actually legal to cross those borders if you're not a citizen of the United States.
Okay, crossing the border illegally is not a crime?
No, it's not a criminal act. Okay. It's a misdemeanor.
So why are they being sent back and saying that they're breaking the law?
That's the point.
Okay, as somebody that actually...
We don't know if they're breaking the law because they won't tell. There's no due process. Where's the evidence? That's the whole point. And if they are breaking the law, most people will say, okay, then they need to go if they're criminals. But if they're not, why are they being rounded up and sent out? Especially when he promised to deport the criminals, and now he's not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going...
Misdemeanor is not a crime.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor is not a crime?
It's not a criminal act, no. If you get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal act.
So why get charged at all then, if it's not a criminal act?
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything is not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
it's just
we have
level.
different levels of. I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
So it's breaking the law.
No,
the law, but
you're not breaking the law.
The misdemeanor is not breaking the law.
No.
If you're speeding, drinking, get pulled over, DUI.
That's not a criminal act. Well, no, if you're speeding is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor.
Right.
So it's still breaking the law.
Okay, well, if you want to qualify that, we're doing semantics.
Because
but what I'm trying to tell you is everything is not the same. It's all not one thing.
But is it the law?
What is it? The law that what?
Is it a law to come over legally? Is there a law?
There are rules processes that you should follow. Yeah, so you're breaking rules. You're breaking the rules, but you're not necessarily breaking a law.
So what happens when you break the rules?
Then you suffer the consequences. But the consequences should not. Look, no one is saying no one should suffer the consequences. You guys are getting things mixed up.
Don Lemon, back in 2025, interviewing people on the street, just trying to gaslight them right to their face. No, there's a law, but when you break that law, you're not breaking the law because it's a misdemeanor. Well, that's true for the first time. The second time, it is a felony, just a little bit different here. But you are breaking the law. You're breaking the law. There's no two ways about it. You know, when you hear that just invincible ignorance, I keep coming to the point of there's no other thing to do for people like that than to just pray for them, because that brain is broken, that soul is calloused, and frankly, he needs to read the statement that the elders put out from Cities Church in the Twin Cities. When we come back, I learned a very specific lesson over the weekend. Maybe you can avoid the same fate as well. That's coming up next. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. I learned a very specific lesson. Both Bella and I, my beautiful wife Bella and I, learned a very specific lesson overnight Saturday into Sunday. Typically, I come to bed sometime after Bella. I did the same on Saturday night, about 10:45, 11 o'clock. I had put my AirPod into my right ear, turned on a podcast to fall asleep to. Don't write to me about how I shouldn't go to bed with Bluetooth earbuds in. Just, you can save those. I've seen it all. I started listening to this podcast. I pulled up the covers to climb underneath the nice warm covers, and I could have sworn I heard a very high-pitched, extremely ear-splitting beep. Bella stirred, but she wasn't awake. But she stirred enough to where I didn't feel bad waking her. I said, "Bella, did you hear that?" She said, "No, I didn't hear that." I said, "I thought it sounded like the smoke detector, but if you didn't hear it, then I must have just been making that up." I went out to the living room. There's a new screen for a skylight calendar. It was pretty bright. I was trying to figure out how to get that off. I was listening to this podcast. I backed up to the very beginning. I gaslit myself. I convinced myself that I was just hallucinating, an auditory hallucination. It was something on the podcast. Maybe I was just yawning or something. You know, sometimes your ears can ring when you're yawning. Got back into the bed. We had just drifted off to sleep. Every single smoke detector, this was about 11:15, 11:30, every single smoke detector in our house started sounding. Every single one. You've all been there before as well. Of course, this always happens at the least convenient time. The time when your children should be sleeping. And, thank the Lord, somehow, some way, Abigail and Benjamin never woke up. Keep this in mind throughout the rest of the story. They never woke up. After about 30 seconds, that seemed like 5 minutes, the smoke detectors stopped sounding. Now, Iowa code is that you have to have a smoke detector in every sleeping room, outside of every sleeping room, and an additional smoke detector for each level of the house. That means we've got 8 smoke detectors all around the house. Now, we have a nice house. It's not a mansion by any stretch of the imagination. 8 smoke detectors seems like a little bit of overkill. And we're both really tired. We're both trying to figure out, okay, there's a green light, there's a blinking red light, there's a green light, there's a steady green light, there's a blinking green light on that one. We're going all around, but I just thought, you know what? Maybe this is just a one-off. So about 11:50, I tell Bella, for the first of, I think 3 or 4 times I told her this, you know what, I think it's going to be okay. Just in case there's a real fire, I'm going to stay up a little bit later and make sure this doesn't happen again. You can go to sleep, honey. So, I've got some work to do. It's the fun type of work, not busy work. Stay up doing that. About an hour goes by. It's 12:45, 12:50. I'm just about ready to go to bed. And it happens again. Happens again. "30 seconds goes by. The children are still asleep. Bella and I are freaking out. Because the kids weren't waking up. I mean, this is 85 decibels. Because the kids weren't waking up, at one point, Bella and I look at each other and like, is this real life? Are we dreaming all of this? How are they still asleep? when we're trying to run around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to figure out which one is going wrong. Eventually, we located one smoke detector we thought was maybe the issue because it had a blinking red light, or maybe it was a blinking green light when all of the other smoke detectors were solidly green or solidly red. Can't even remember. No chirping, mind you. No warning chirps for low battery or anything like that. So we found a 9-volt battery, put that in there, thought this is fine now. Tell Bella, okay, I think we're good now. You can go back to bed. By this time, it's about, oh man, this time it's about 1:30 in the morning. 2 o'clock rolls around, all of the alarms, all of the smoke detectors go off again. And at that point, I said, I have no idea what's going on here. At that point, I said, we're taking all the smoke detectors down. So we went into the kids' rooms, took the smoke detectors down while they were asleep, took all the smoke detectors down in the house, put them downstairs. They started going off again. Even after I'd unhooked them all, because this is a wired system, a couple of them started going off again, so I took the batteries out of those too. And finally, after staying up and making sure that there wasn't actually a fire or anything like that, around 3:30 in the morning, I finally got to go to bed. Now, investigating the next day, come to find out, 6 of the 8 smoke detectors should have been replaced 13 years ago. That means they were 23 years old. The other 2 should have been replaced 8 years ago, which means they were 18 years old. Unbelievable. So, the very specific lesson that we learned Saturday night into Sunday, it's probably not a good idea to have smoke detectors in your house that are over 20 years old. That is the very specific lesson we learned. That is our account of the situation. I know everyone has been there before, but good gravy. I've been a zombie for the first few days of this week, all because of that night. Thank the Lord, the kids didn't have the same experience. That's going to do it for a Wednesday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.